it was a peaceful arrest, first and foremost. The officer quickly recognized the male as the suspect from the shooting. And within several seconds of the first contact, he had asked the suspect if he had been in New York City recently. And that really invoked a physical reaction from the suspect. He became visibly nervous, kind of shaking at that question. And he didn't really answer it directly. So that statement alone really said a lot. And the suspect didn't have to say a lot after that question to show that, he was very nervous at that point.
We knew that was our guy, but he was very cooperative with us. Didn't really give us too many issues. Once we found out his identity, we took it from there.
How does it feel with 6 months on the job as a law enforcement officer to be part of?
I can't say I was expecting it by any means, but it feels good to get a guy like that off the street, especially starting my career this way. It feels great.
We now know the name, and we have a clear look at the face of the man whose search has captivated the nation over the last week. The suspected killer of United Healthcare CEO is now in custody. It's a 26-year-old Ivy League graduate, Luigi Mangione, charged with 1 count of second-degree murder. Police arrested Mangione at a Pennsylvania McDonald's yesterday when an employee called authorities after recognizing him. According to a criminal complaint, when officers arrived, the man was wearing a medical mask and a beanie, sitting at the rear of the building on a laptop. They asked him to pull down the mask to, quote, to see his face, and, quote, immediately recognized him.
Within several seconds of the first contact, he had asked the suspect if he had been in New York City recently, and that really invoked a physical reaction from the suspect. He became visibly nervous, kind of shaking.
Kind of shaking there. Mangione had key evidence on him when he was arrested. Police found a black 3D printed pistol with a loaded Glock magazine and a 3D printed black silencer in his backpack. And they recovered a fake New Jersey ID. The fake ID matched the ID that was used to check into the New York City hostel before the shooting, according to the New York Police Commissioner. Authorities say they also found a handwritten document that speaks to his, quote, motivation and mindset. NBC News obtained this video showing Mangione arriving in court yesterday. Mangione's family responding to the news in a statement, quote, our family is shocked and devastated by Luigi's arrest. We offer our prayers to the family of Brian Thompson, and we ask people to pray for all involved. The shocking Midtown Manhattan assassination uncovered a deep dissatisfaction with the nation's healthcare system. According to his former roommate, it's something that Mangione was in the middle of navigating himself.
I remember he said he had a back issue and he was hoping to get stronger in Hawaii. So he's always focused on trying. When he first came, he went on a surf lesson with other members, and unfortunately, just a basic surf lesson, he was in bed for about a week. I know he was really focused on being strong and healthy, but it also weighed on him that he knew that there was an impending surgery. I knew he was going to have a surgery, so earlier this year, I checked in with him. He confirmed that he had surgery, and he sent me the x-rays. It looked heinous with just giant screws going into his spine.
All right, joining us now is former supervisory FBI Special Agent Scott Duffy. Scott, good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here. I think one of the things that people are really focused on and talking about this morning is the background of this young man. He came from a very privileged family, it seemed, in the Baltimore area, very prominent family. His grandfather had owned a country club and a nursing home and some other things. He went to a private school that cost a lot of money. He goes on to the Ivy League. He's the valedictorian in 2016. What do you understand when you think about the profile here? I mean, the one, of course, thing that stands out is that he seems to have broken contact with his family about 6 months or so ago, although the timeline, of course, still being nailed down by authorities. How do you understand why this young man may have done this?
Yeah, good morning, Casey, and thank you for having me on the show. The motive with regards to the why and the planning, et cetera, all that will lend itself as this kind of goes through the prosecution. I think, though, there is plenty of evidence, not only what you were speaking of with regards to his background, the fact that he might be privileged versus not privileged, I don't think lends itself so much as his education. The fact that he is well-rounded, well-spoken, valedictorian of his class in high school. And so the fact that you have all this, everything at his fingertips, everything for a bright future, what is it that clicked in his mind where everything now gets pushed to the back? And it seemed like his sole goal was to accomplish what he accomplished last week in New York City.
So, what happens next here in terms of the investigation, the trial? Obviously, this charge has already been made, and it seems they're very clearly confident that they've got their guy. What else still needs to be nailed down?
Yeah, so New York City is resting a little bit with regards to spending countless hours, probably no sleep for many of these detectives, because they needed a name and they needed a location in order to arrest him. So that was accomplished yesterday, at least in the mind of New York, with regards to they believe they have sufficient evidence to tie the individual at the McDonald's in Altoona to the scene for the shooting of Brian Thompson. In my world, this is where we say now the work begins. It is a tremendous amount of work with all the different units in the police department and, of course, all their law enforcement partners. You have your bosses that are constantly at your desk, probably saying, "What do I, what do you know, what can you give me?" Now it's the prosecutors. Now it's the evidence. It is tying Luigi Mangione to the crime scene, to unmask that individual, to put that gun that was recovered at the McDonald's to the very gun that shot those bullets into Brian, and being able to ensure there's no gap between the individual when he arrived in New York, all the days leading up to the shooting, and then, of course, the 5+ days that he was on the run, and being able for law enforcement to go through each and every spot, location, anywhere that he might have stopped other than that McDonald's. So now they have those 5 days of gap to fill in and ensure that all the evidence speaks for itself.
How big of a mistake, sir, for this person, for Luigi Mangione, was not getting rid of the gun in his possession? That detail seems to be a little bit surprising. Obviously, NYPD detectives had been saying they were looking for it in Central Park, for example.
Yeah, these are the questions in my mind and in all of society where, so now this has been on the news day and night, and law enforcement has been looking to put a name to a face. And then for this individual, not only, think about it, what we have, most of our photos are of him with some sort of masking, whether it be a medical mask, this scarf that was on him, at least a similar one, and then having his weapon. I think the key here is astute law enforcement, a fantastic call into 911 by whoever it was at the McDonald's. And then ultimately, I think what nailed it was the fact that he used the very New Jersey ID that he provided to the hostel, to law enforcement, for him not to realize that law enforcement is going to check that, and that they're not just going to look at it and say, "Oh, okay, go on your way." To be able to tie those initial pieces, and then, of course, having the weapon, says a lot about the character, the mindset. Was his work not done? Was he going to continue on? All those questions need to be answered.
All right, Scott Duffy for us this morning, sir. Very grateful to have you on the show today. Thanks for being here.